So are we getting into the post album history here, or was there more to it? Oh, you're muted. Of course.
I'm muted. Hello, welcome back. I'm here. Post album history, it's just such a damn interesting band, over the years. There's so many good albums that follow this. There's so many like big events that happen. I'd really encourage if you are a fan at all, check out Selena's book, Pearl Jam Live 35 Years. Just super fascinating, like walk through everything that, shaped the band. And, a lot of it, I don't know. It's interesting to think about, but she talked about how like the band was shaped and held together by tragedy a lot, and it's just something that kind of comes up, a lot throughout the band's time together. They came together because of Andrew Wood's passing. They lost a lot of people on the scene like Kurt and Lane, and people that really stood out and meant something amongst the other famous or less famous people that also had addiction issues, depression, all those things. They had the Roskilde incident where fans were trampled to death in the crowd and everything. And then years later when Chris Cornell passed, that was grounds to give up a lot of times and just kind of walk away from it. But instead they kept persevering. Temple of the Dog even had a reunion, a year or two before Chris passed. I mean, these guys pay a lot of respect to the history. They pay so much respect and love to the fans, and they do that through their shows. And I would say, for
They
me,
do
I
that
kind
through
of
their
lost.
shows and their
Yeah,
attempted combating of Ticketmaster.
Ticketmaster.
It's
All
it
the
was basically
causes.
they like that whole thing is like, to me in my mind, it's like the exact mirror image of Metallica attempting to defeat Napster, for better
Hmm.
or worse. Like that,
Exactly.
for whether or not you agree, or I mean, part of the Napster battle kind of came to fruition. I mean, we are now musicians are now getting paid pennies for what they used to, but
As much
but
as
with
it
Pearl
pains me to
Jam,
say,
they
Lars
were,
wasn't wrong. Yeah.
yeah, with Pearl Jam, they were, you know, that they were attacking the establishment on behalf of the fans.
Right. Not
So,
trying to pocket it themselves necessarily.
and still are, but yeah. So I mean, that's a huge part of their history as well.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, well, I guess to paraphrase Zoolander, Sting. I'm a fan of his music. I don't really like the music, but I'm a fan that he's making it. The Pearl Jam's still putting out new albums. 30 years later, they're still getting together to write. Eddie's doing projects. Everybody's working on something musically. I think I tuned out of being like a hardcore fan probably around 2002, 2003, and maybe like 15 years worth of work, that new stuff I should say, that I didn't really get into. But they kept going live, and I think the live thing is really what's continued being their legacy. They're kind of this generation's dead Rolling Stones, whatever you want to call it. They sell tickets for a 60,000 seat arena or stadium. They're sold out in minutes. And then they give the money to like homeless charities. I mean, they're, they're good guys. It's hard not to
Yeah.
like them.
Well, lest we let an episode go without NFL talk, they're kind of the we had mentioned on the the kind of band comp for the Steelers. When we talked about Mike Tomlin will never let them go a season without a losing record, and
Hmm.
that's why they're always around. Well, I think Pearl Jam is almost not included in this whole new thing where like bands like Green Day and Nirvana are kind of having a revival moment. I think Pearl Jam is not as much included on that, specifically because of what you're talking about. Like they never went away the way that the way that these other bands sort of
Yeah,
did.
there wasn't much of a roller coaster as much as a very
No.
steady ride. Yeah,
Yeah, for, whether or not you think, the Steelers could have used better draft picks by having a shit season at some point, or whether you think Pearl Jam may be
they
more
took 5 years
appreciated in the
off.
current
Yeah,
moment if they weren't active the entire time. That's their, like, that's their personality. Like
totally.
they they stuck around. Yeah.
Exactly. And you start seeing kids and all generations really into it now. I mean, my parents love them. I love them. Hopefully someday my kids at least enjoy them. I don't know if they will, but who knows? It's pretty just timeless rock music, and
Yeah.
I don't know. We talked about favorite non-songs. Is there like a favorite album after the fact that if we were to do another one sometime you'd want to look into more? Or
From after this, I remember I think it was No Code,
mm,
interestingly, because I think that's one that generally people aren't big on. I can't really remember. But
yeah, I think Vitology was the last one that sold. Well, I shouldn't say the last one. It was the last one that was like super hyped, and then
yeah.
it kind of went down. But No Code's an awesome album.
Yeah, I think it may have been. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there was this kind of
Yield,
I
No
had a
Code,
moment
that
where
whole
I had a moment, I think it was like CD buying or something, where, like, it was that time where you would go to like a secondhand or something like that, and we were not quite into MP3s yet, and but you didn't have money either, so you're like, if you found a CD that you could afford and have, like, it would kind of default become your album. And I think there was like that, and one of the less loved, like, REM albums that I had at
mm,
that time, on CD
like
from that sort
Monster or
of
something.
moment. I thought Monster was a big one. I want to say it
It
was.
was big, but yeah, I remember having it though.
I'll figure out the REM one, but basically, yeah, I think there's a real specific moment in time where where at least I would have CDs and be like, that may not be the band's best album, but it's the album that I have, and I'm like, oh, I think it was Reveal, REM's Reveal.
Oh,
I
okay.
remember I remember having that and my CD player on, like, one of the extremely rare, like, plane rides or something that I had been on at the time, and being like, hey, like, I'm really into this, but, and, unknown to me that, like, people are not so big on it. So yeah.
Right. I mean, it's funny, kind of in that vacuum when you don't have the whole group think to tell you that which album's the one to get behind, and you're a kid and
Yeah.
listen to it like, oh man, this album's great. I love this. What do you mean this
Yeah.
is
I
the shittiest
do.
one out?
I do definitely remember a lot of Vitology, though, being a big thing. So
Yeah. I think that's an interesting era, for the band too, where they start kind of really rejecting all that commercial success. They want to go a little bit more artsy and kind of do their own thing. And there's some tracks on that one where it's just like, okay, I don't know how you got that one on an album, but that's pretty bizarre. There's Eddie with an accordion singing about bugs, like,
yeah,
okay, why not? You can do
that
whatever.
was a big runner on that. That was a big runner on that Band's Playing album, was Eddie's song about bugs.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good one. It's something.
Do you wanna hit up? So I've got kind of, for, I mean, I think, I don't know if there's much more of our opinions to give on this album other
Oh,
than, like, the overview, but I had kind of a secondary sound check question of,
hmm.
what is grunge really? And I wanted to know, do you want to talk that, or do you want to check into the multiverse first?
Let's multiverse it first.
All right, hit me up. You got a drop for the
Yeah.
multiverse?
Oh, a drop? I bet I have a drop.
As I look up what I have here.
Hold on, Doctor Strange. We need you. I know we put you later in the show, Doctor Strange, but we still need you. You're still important. Come on. Are you ready?
Grab
You're
him,
ready.
grab him from the mirror of
What do you know
universe.
about the
There
multiverse?
we go.
The multiverse.
Fizz had his theories. He believed it was real and dangerous.
Well, he was right about both.
You know, it's interesting. We were just watching the multiverse Spider-Man movie, and I forgot that the very last like end credit stinger on that is a trailer for that Doctor Strange movie, and that line plays in the trailer, and I was like, it was so
Right?
odd hearing
I
it outside
know.
of the podcast.
It's kind of funny, but man, I remember the first time I saw that trailer that like my head blew up. That looks so cool.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the next one we're gonna watch. But speaking of the multiverse, Pearl Jam 10 comes in at number 339 on the list. And what we're going to do here is borrow Doctor Strange's the old Eye of Agamotto to look into these other universes and see, what if this podcast was about something, another top 500 list, and we were looking at another number 339. So, like, let's say we were looking at the Rolling Stone top 500 albums of all time. If we were doing that, number 339 is Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814, which is, once again, I mean, we had mentioned before, 339 for Pearl Jam 10 is pretty low. I also think 330, for Rolling Stone's part, 339 for Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation is pretty low,
It's
especially considering the
surprising. Yeah.
makeup of the Rolling Stone list. Like that kind of thing, that kind of seems like the thing that that seems like the kind of thing that they would put way higher, but apparently
I
not.
feel like that's one that gets lost in the shuffle maybe sometimes, and I don't know why it is. Um, I don't think it has anything to do with wardrobe malfunctions, but you know, Janet just doesn't get the love she deserves. I don't think sometimes.
Yeah, well, and I think that's another product of kind of she kind of she kind of called it of around the wardrobe malfunction time. I think she smartly said, I'm done with this culture and nation. I'm just going to take my money and enjoy it.
I don't need this shit. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But so Rhythm Nation is her fourth album. It's a follow up to 1986's Control. Um, Control went platinum 5 times by the time that Rhythm Nation came out. So despite pressure from her label to kind of follow up the success of Control's like kind of commercial appeal, she decided that Rhythm Nation was going to be a concept album kind of based on her personal feelings and responses to social issues of the day. And it was going to be a story about founding a kind of musical utopian nation. Um, the label's fears ended up being unfounded. Rhythm Nation goes on to become the best-selling album of 1990. It goes double platinum in 1 year, and eventually goes 6 times platinum over its lifetime, outperforming Control in a lot of ways. There's actually some previous Indie 500 podcast names that come up. Jesse Johnson, George Jellybean Johnson, and Terry Lewis from The Time actually all worked on this album. Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam, which I believe, I think that's what they call Jesse Johnson. Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam actually become a producer duo working on Control, and I think maybe a few albums before this. But anyways, they go on to write and produce over 30 number one hits after this, including On Bended Knee by Boyz II Men.
Oh wow,
Yeah, that's a big one.
bastards.
Yep. Steve Morse from the Boston Globe said about Rhythm Nation, quote, "It's a dance record with a ruthlessly frank social conscience that addresses drugs, homelessness, illiteracy, and teen runaways. She's reached far beyond dance music's fluffy image to unite even serious rockers and rappers who usually look the other way." I don't believe it shows up on the Enemy list, maybe because the Enemy reviewer at the time, Ayodele Fideli, gave it a 6 out of 10, but I couldn't find any quotes from him.
It's not great. Yeah.
Perhaps if we were a movie podcast, we may be looking at the IMDb top 1000. For the Rick Quinns of the world out there, this particular list I'm looking at was compiled by a user named Rodney James Ryder, who says he is combining ratings and percentages from 5 prominent movie databases, including Metacritic, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, TCM, and Sight and Sound. Additional points were given to films repeatedly appearing on lists of the top films. So
I like it.
number 339 on this list is a movie, 2004's Michel Gondry and Charlie Kaufman film Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which is about a man and his girlfriend who undergo experimental memory erasure procedures after a breakup.
I
I'm
know
sure
this
you
is
remember
like
this one.
all. Oh, absolutely. I know
Okay.
this is like all like our generation stuff. So maybe that's why we're so like biased. But this is like the how is this so low episode? Like
Yeah.
I saw that like in the top 40 of Rolling Stone's recent like top 100 movies of the 21st century. So to think of it
Yeah.
as like 339, like damn, okay, but it's
Yeah.
a great movie.
Yeah. I noted this is a personal favorite. It's got a great premise. It's an emotional story, and like Michel Gondry, Charlie Kaufman, and Jim Carrey all working together is kind of insane.
A fever dream. Yeah,
Yeah. I read that Tracy Morgan actually filmed scenes for the movie but got cut out.
probably for the best.
I really wonder what he was doing in there. It was generally well regarded. It won Best Original Screenplay at the Oscars, the British Film Awards, and the National Board of Review and the Writers Guild of America. The New York Times in 2017 named it one of the best movies of the 21st century. And the Onion AV declared it the best movie of the 2000s. The writer over there says, quote, though Kaufman is hardly a purely cerebral writer, his philosophical inquiries find an added emotional weight under Gondry's direction. Portraying the fading and flaring of love in gargantuan bookstores and railway lines, Gondry captures a moment that's quintessentially 21st century and yet timeless. It's the rare film that shows us who we are now, who we're likely to be, or who we're likely, for better or worse, forever to be.
I'm gonna watch that again tonight. That's a good one.
It's very good. I feel like I rewatched it not too long ago, and yeah, it's one that holds up. If this podcast was maybe about video games, we might be looking at Metacritic's top video games of all time, and over there, number 339 is EA's MVP Baseball 2004. It was so in 2004, Albert Pujols is the cover athlete.
Pujols.
Oh yeah, that's right. He is Latino.
Yeah. Well, plus it's just a funny name to call somebody a poo
I should have let you take that one. Anyways, it's a signature of the podcast. We don't look up how to pronounce people's names.
When you're done talking to him, play with me on Minecraft.
Yeah, sure. Can you give me about 20 more minutes, maybe?
Sure.
Okay. You want to say hi? Okay.
I'm about to go.
All right. See you later. Should we mark a clip there?
Yeah.
I have a button for adding a marker. What does it do?
You can do it too. Yeah.
Ooh, neat. Okay.
It'll when I go to edit, it'll just have the little marker in there, and it'll remind me to check this section. Yeah.
All right.
But anyway,
kick him out. He's not allowed to be on the podcast.
yeah, right.
He has bad music opinions. He only likes K-pop Demon Hunters and Everything is Awesome from the Lego Movie.
That's pretty good though for his age, to be honest.
We'll have him on for the Discovery episode.
So yeah,
right.
MVP baseball.
MVP Baseball 2004.
Yeah, I know I played the shit out of that series, and yeah, Albert Pujols, he's definitely an all-timer. I mean, like one of, God, what is it, 4 people to have 700 home runs in their career. So, I mean, that's a That's a number right there.
Yeah.
Man, that takes me back. Jeez.
I've got noted here that this was the first baseball game officially licensed by minor league baseball. So it
Oh,
had real both double A and triple A teams. It was the first time
nice.
that would ever happen.
Okay. Yeah, I always
And
liked playing the show for that too, for that reason.
I also noted it was developed by EA's Vancouver division, which is actually EA's oldest and largest studio. They work primarily on all of EA's non Madden sports titles, mainly FIFA, now known as EAFC. And they
Oh,
also
that's
worked on
good
other
stuff.
titles like Test Drive, SSX, all of the Street series, so like NBA Street, FIFA Street, NFL
Oh,
Street. If you ever tried those, yeah,
oh, I love
I
those.
I played the hell out of NBA Street 2 back
It
in the
was the
day.
closest thing we've had modern to like NBA Jam.
Yeah. They also put together the EA UFC games, and back in the day when they still did boxing, they put together Fight Night
Oh,
Champion. Yeah.
God, I love those games too.
Yeah. That's what I got for the multiverse. So, as I was saying, I do have kind of a secondary sound check question, which is, what is grunge really?
Mm.
And I have a thesis written out, but if you've got a take, I don't mind going second here if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's as open ended as saying what is punk, right? I mean,
Yes.
you can certainly like pick things out of a bin and say these are punk, these are grunge. I mean, for me, it represents a period. Let's call it 89 to 94. Seattle scene. Um, go watch the movie Singles. Go watch Hype. Go watch Decline of Western Civilization Part Three, and you're gonna see what grunge is. It's just kind of this DIY punk ethos, in the Seattle area, mixed with like, the luck of it turning into a hard rock, commercial movement. It became commercialized, it burned out, I think it's characterized too by a lot of, bleakness, a lot of drugs, a lot of depression. I think, Yasi Solek famously said it's kind of like the music for the divorced generation, all the kids of
Hmm.
divorce. So it's definitely, it's different. And in like punk, one band doesn't sound like the next band, doesn't sound like the other band. They all have different influences. They all have different styles. They all have different abilities. Was Nirvana the most talented band? No, that probably goes to like Alice in Chains or Soundgarden. Were they the most like connective, influential, people resonated with? Yeah, I mean, people loved Kurt. They loved his words. There's no question there. And I don't know. I think it's interesting. Yeah, people today still kind of just go back to that whole like, this is grunge, this isn't grunge. It's not anything. It's just a way to package a movement, honestly, and a package a time and place and a sound.
And that's kind of the perfect lead into what I wanted to say, which was, you know, I think I think 10 is kind of the perfect album to really set terms with what grunge is for this show. And it is and I think it's because of them specifically that grunge is, as you said, a little more wide ranging than, it's able to exist next to something like it's it's able to exist next to something like punk as a very wide genre. I think specifically because of Pearl Jam. So, like, I I think if you removed Pearl Jam from this scene and the grunge kind of picture, and like let's say it just breaks out with something, it just breaks out with only Nevermind, Bad Motorfinger by Soundgarden, or and Dirt by Alice in Chains. I think if that was the case, it would have been much easier to pigeonhole grunge as the kind of dark rock thing. And I also feel like those three bands kind of they share they share a lot more in common with each other than any of them share with Pearl Jam. Like you know, I don't think you can separate the four, and because if that Seattle scene in grunge has to be anything, it's that, like you said, the late '80s, early '90s Seattle scene where everybody that the guys in Pearl Jam are literally roommates, bandmates, co-workers, and friends with all the people in Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Nirvana. So it's not like you can separate them out. But at the same time, Pearl Jam doesn't share a lot of the kind of signature sound and tendencies that those other three do. So kind of by default, like those extra things that Pearl Jam has become part of grunge anyway, like especially to the wider world. Pearl Jam has like a very earnest emotional front man. They have more they have more they have more complicated song composition. They're a little more into experimentation and, you know, artistic freedom than the other three. And so that's kind of like that's why I think when Nirvana and Alice in Chains kind of exit, so to speak, I think there's that narrative of grunge dying, but I think what what more accurately I think a more accurate way to talk about that endpoint right there is that the Nirvana and Alice in Chains, and to a lesser degree Soundgarden version of grunge kind of ebbs, and the Pearl Jam version of grunge becomes the new thing. Like we've mentioned the kind of odd 95 to 99 period of music. And I think a lot of the stuff that you see there, like our last episode's beloved Counting Crows, Live,
Seven Mary Three, Everclear.
all that stuff, and a lot of the kind of alternative acoustic rock, Hootie and the Blowfish, things like that. That's You can trace that all back to Pearl Jam. So it's almost a misnomer to say that grunge died off right then, because so much of what Pearl Jam was doing becomes the thing. Like it's just this other flavor of grunge that's
It
you know
just it
resurgent
just
at the end there.
exactly. It became fully commercialized and moved out of Seattle is what happened. I
Hmm.
mean, like the style and sound didn't die. I mean, you even have bands like Three Doors Down, 10 years later, where it's like, I mean, and I promised myself I'd never use this name on air, but like Nickelback, even
Hmm.
that's kind of like a cop of that, Pearl Jam baritone vocal style,
Yeah.
crunchy rock riffs. Like it's all kind of derivative of that, and you don't have to like what it evolved into, but to say that it isn't connected would be kind of misleading and silly.
Yeah. But I guess the main thing there that I wanted to say and talk about is basically, I think Pearl Jam is almost single-handedly responsible for grunge not just existing as, a very specific subgenre. Like it's a much wider thing almost entirely because of them. Like there's a lot of stuff, and I know a lot of, I think a lot of people look at the Pearl Jam follow-ups and kind of followers, and that's like the initial point of where people start saying like, well, that's not grunge, and like maybe they're right, but I think a lot of times people discount that kind of music originates from a grunge band, like a grunge band that absolutely no one will ever dispute is grunge. So like it's kind of a misnomer to it's a little bit of a misnomer to say something like, you know, something like Counting Crows and Hootie. You know, I mean, I definitely think people are allowed to say that's not grunge, but I think a lot of people discount the fact that they are copying from a band that definitely is grunge. So maybe there's
Right.
more of an argument to be
Having a
had there.
single like Daughter made it, you know, okay for a rock radio station to play a song like I Only Want to Be With You, you know, by Hootie. Like it
Mhm.
just kind of opened the door a little bit. Well, and one of the things I think that's so interesting about the title too is like within it, and even within the same bands as like the guys evolved. You know, we talked about Green River early on, where it's half Pearl Jam, half Mudhoney, and you know the Mudhoney guys, they never wanted to sell out. They wanted to be punks. They basically made fun of the guys in Pearl Jam for being like
Mhm.
careerist sellouts. Um, but they're all under the same umbrella, aren't they? And you know, Pearl Jam didn't really want that sellout stuff either. It was just kind of forced upon them, and you know, they got caught up in the machine of it because they were going to make somebody popular. You know, they had to market it. Somebody had to make money, and you know, they wanted their videos, and Pearl Jam didn't really want to do it. So I mean, I think that's one of the unifying things is like they all kind of have that. You know, I'm just here for music and to you know to have fun and to create, not to sell out, but they did anyway.
Yeah, and I think that's a mark of a lot of, I mean, a lot of bands that are going to end up on the Enemy Top 500 list. Um, I think, part and parcel of reaching that next tier of being really great is, you know, a lot of times it's the people who didn't want it. You know, the fact that they were not aiming to become great kind of inexplicably gives people a leg up to actually being great or
You're
being
writing
very,
because
very
you have something to
successful.
say and not just because you have a contract, you know.
Mhm.
Sometimes
Yeah,
that's the difference, you know.
yeah, exactly. Well,
Well, I hope we come
have we
back to
come to our
grunge.
favorite part of the show, or
Yeah.
what do you got?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I hope we come back to grunge soon, you know, something
Yeah.
grungy. And, you know, we've been reading a lot of cool books lately, and it's such a fun thing to kind of look back as, you know, a kid in that time, all the things we missed.
Let's uh let's log in, or let's log out and log back in real quick before we finish out, because your mic went all scratchy